It's time to add our 12-volt system to the cargo camper. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm Kevin with Kemp Outside, your inside source for all things outside. Well, it is time to do a major upgrade to the cargo camper. As you can see, we already have our solar panel racks on. We have 1,200 watts of solar panels on the roof of this trailer. We're gonna put 560 amp hours of 12-volt battery in here with two 280 amp hour watt cycle batteries. We are running Victron and Renogy components. We are going to dive into this 12-volt system. Check it out. All right, guys, so here's the rough layout. We are going to use a couple of Lynx ins by Victron as our bus bars. We have a 30 amp AC to DC charger, two MPPT 150 charge controllers for the solar, an Orion XS DC to DC charge controller so we can charge off the tow vehicle. We have a Renogy 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. We have a 12 volt fuse box for just 12 volt accessories. That is a breaker switch for the solar panels. We have a Blue Sea Systems battery switch, a Victron Smart Shunt, and then we have some Blue Sea Systems fuses for the batteries down over here. I'm going to fuse each battery separate because I'm worried about over current draw. I'm not confident that the BMS in those batteries is good enough to do current protect, so we're going to put fuses in just in case. I've got to get this mounted in the trailer, and actually I've got to trim this board. It's too big. But the next thing to do is to remove the bed in the cargo camper so we can get all this inside. Let's get to work. All right, guys, so here's the bed and the platform. We're going to put the stuff on that side. So I got to get the bed out, get the platform out, and then figure out how we're going to mount that board on the wall of the trailer. Let's get to work. So this is exactly why I built the bed the way I did, and I have a video on this bed build if you want to check it out, guys. But I have it sitting in these joist hangers on the E-track, and they're just pinned so I can pull them out. And as you can see, I have them numbered, and so they're very easy to remove. So I can work in here, and then I can put the bed back. All right, guys, I got my board in, and I'm super excited because as Tiller gets in the way, look out, Till. Look out, Till. Come here, Till. Okay. What I really like about this is that I can remove it. The board is hanging on E-track, and it'll be strapped at the bottom. I've got to install some E-track at the bottom, but that way I'll be able to remove it, and I'll be able to run wire behind the board. So there won't be a lot of exposed wire on the front. So now that I've got this set up, I'm going to remove it and start mounting stuff to the board. All right, guys, so here's the progress I've made. And this is the mock-up. So we've got the 2 watt cycle, 280 amp hour batteries. I know they say 300 when I bought them. They were selling them as 300 amp hour batteries. They're actually 280 amp hour cells. There's a whole thing about that. You can check out my video on that if you want to see it. Either way, they're good batteries. They're just not 300 amp hour batteries or 280 amp hour batteries. Each of those batteries is going to come into some fuses. Each of those are fused at 250 amps. Going to come into this bus bar on the positive side, then into the battery switch, and then into these Lynx power ends that I'm using as bus bars. There's also right there, a Victron Smart Shunt on the negative side, and that'll tell me how my system is doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire all of these up into the 2000 watt inverter, the DC to DC charge controller, 2 MPPT charge controllers, one for each 600 watt array on the roof. And then this is a 30 amp battery charger off AC power. I'm going to run AC power right here. This is going to be an outlet for AC power so that this can get plugged in, and that'll run off shore power or the generator. This is the breaker box for the solar panels. So if I want to just shut the solar panels off, all I got to do is drop the ramp door, reach underneath, and kill the panels. that is it so far. I'm going to do a bunch of wiring now. I'm going to shoot a video on how to set up a Lynx power in as a big bus bar, because that saves space and is really, really cool. So I've got a lot of wiring to do, and then we're going to come back, put it back in the trailer and wire up the stuff that is in the trailer, like feeds to and from the solar panels, feeds to the transfer switch to transfer from battery to shore power generator, all that stuff we have to do as well. So we've got a lot of work to do. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, I'm a disgusting and sweaty mess, which means it is day 2 of working on our off-grid 12-volt power for the cargo camper. Let me show you what I've done so far. All right, guys, ignore the mess over here, right? Just focus on the board. So what we've got is we've got our negative in right here, comes to our smart shunt, comes to the bus bar negative. These are our 2 battery ends. They're fused. They come into a battery switch and then into the positive bus bar. On the first one is a 250 amp fuse running to our Renogy 2000 watt inverter. The next one is our Orion XS DC to DC charge controller. Our next one is going to be a DC fuse block similar to this one up in the front end of the trailer. This one obviously will be at the back end of the trailer, so I haven't run the wire yet for that. This one is open. I'm keeping this open in case we decide to switch out to a 12-volt air conditioner unit instead of the Dometic rooftop AC that we currently have, that when we're boondocking, we have to run the generator in order to power that. Then over here is our first MPPT 150 solar charge controller. Here's the second one. Here is our 30 amp AC charger from Victron. And then this one will be the 12 volt fuse block over here. One of my problems is I didn't have a battery lug that would fit this post, so I had to order one. It won't be delivered for a couple of days, so I'm in a holding pattern until I can finish that. Basically, once I get this wired up, this will be ready to be put in the trailer, and then we'll have to run the wires to them. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention is these green 10 gauge wires are grounds for the smart solar MPPT charge controllers and one for the Renogy. So everything is wired and grounded as far as I can go. Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to bring in a positive and negative from the tow vehicle for the DC to DC. I'm going to bring in 2 sets of solar leads that are going to come into my solar fuse block, or breaker box I should say. And then I am going to send 4 gauge wire out to the front of the trailer for my other fuse block. I am going to send out 12.3 off the Renogy to the front of the trailer to the transfer switch. Oh, I forgot to mention, I am installing right here a 110 AC outlet for the AC charger that will be plugged into shore power, so I'm gonna have to run that as well. So we got a lot to do still, but I've pretty much hit a wall until I have more stuff delivered, because I can't do anything until I have the right stuff. This has been one heck of a job, guys. I am exhausted, and it's like 100 degrees out here. It feels like temperatures like 102 to 105 every day. I am dying out here. So looking forward to getting this in the trailer and being able to use it rather than work on it. So that is it so far, and I will have more coming up real soon. Stay tuned. All right, guys, as I wait for a few things to be delivered from Amazon today, we're gonna work on the 120 volt alternating current side of the trailer. So What I'm doing with this off-grid system is to be able to run the trailer off the battery system whenever I'm off-grid, obviously. But there are a lot of campgrounds and places where we're either going to run offshore power or we're going to run our generator. Maybe we're in a place where there's a lot of tree cover and we're not getting enough solar panel regeneration for our batteries, and so we want to charge up our batteries, or we just want to run off the generator. Or in my case, when it's hot out, the generator is going to run the air conditioner that I have on the trailer right now. I have said that I would like to go to a 12-volt air conditioner at some point in time, but right now I'm going to run the air conditioner I have. That means running off the generator. When I'm running the generator, I want to be able to charge the batteries. That just makes sense. So what I've got to do is I've got to install a transfer switch, right? So my trailer was started by someone else. I did not do this conversion from scratch. So the person who had the trailer before me installed the electrical, and all they did was install electrical that was designed to run on shore power all the time. It had no off-grid capability whatsoever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the entire electrical system that was put in, and I'm going to replace it with new panels and a transfer switch. And the transfer switch I'm going to use is the TS30 transfer switch from GoPower. And I'm going to have a specific video on the install of this, but we're also going to cover it in this video. So basically what I got to do is I got to get in the trailer. I got to start unwiring and pulling out the old circuit breaker panel and everything. And then we're going to replace it with two new panels. So this is one of the new panels I have here. We're going to bring shore power into one panel. And then we're going to have two circuits that are only run offshore power. The one is the air conditioner, because my off-grid system isn't strong enough to run my air conditioner. And the second one is going to be a circuit specifically for charging the batteries, right? I do not want the circuit for charging the batteries to be run off the inverter when the transfer switch is set to inverter, not shore power, right? Otherwise it would just be a loop, right? And I don't want that. So I want that outlet only to work when shore power is detected, right? So with this panel that I'm going to install here, right, the power is going to come in from shore power. It's going to go to this 20 amp breaker for the AC. This 15 amp breaker is going to be for the outlet for charging the batteries. And then down here, this 20 amp breaker is going to be out to the transfer switch. From the transfer switch will come this panel, which is going to have three 15 amp breakers in it for just outlets and stuff that are in the trailer. Nothing real heavy duty is run off this panel. The most heavy duty thing I have is a very, very small microwave that at most runs about 700 watts. So the rest of them are small puck lights and a few other things that are actually still 110 AC. Oh, and a dorm refrigerator. But other than that, we're not going to have any problems whatsoever. Basically, what's in the trailer right now is one 20 amp circuit to the AC and two 15 amp circuits to the outlets in the trailer. So I know that because it works there, it's going to work here, no problem. If I'm tripping this 20 amp breaker in the panel that feeds the transfer switch, I can always go to a 30 amp, no problem. But I don't think I will. I think 20 amp is plenty. So, but you know, that's one of the great things about this is you can test it and see what works. And circuit breakers are relatively inexpensive. And if I have to pull that 20 out, it's not bad to have another one sitting around the house. So with that, let's get in the trailer and show you what's currently in there and how we're pulling it out. Okay, so this is what's currently installed in the trailer, and as you can see, we have shore power coming in here, and then we have one piece of wire that's going to the nose of the trailer for the outlets. This yellow wire is the air conditioner, and that other beige wire is to an outlet on the other side of this wall. And that's all we've got. So what we've got to do is we've got to pull this out and put the new stuff in. Oh, one other thing that I would say is to make sure that you are completely unplugged from shore power and that you don't have any live wires before you start digging in electrical boxes. All right, so we've hit the first snag. There were two extra wires in the wall that I had no idea were there. That's no problem. We can add them to our breaker box. I just have to get an extra breaker. All right, guys, we got the panels in. Basically, needing to bring these in necessitated this panel to be right here. So it's not ideal. I actually wanted the transfer switch to be between the panels, but it's not going to work that way. Also, because I needed to put these two panels pretty much right next to each other, I've got to get something to strain relief, you know, the wires here so they don't rub. So I got to run up to Ace Hardware and get something to get that done. But I'm going to go ahead and just wire in some of the basic stuff. This is the rooftop air conditioner. This is one of the outlets, and all of these are outlets. And then I'm going to go ahead and wire in the transfer switch. I also had to pull the shore power plug out, which is down here. Basically, when I went to move the wire, it just came out in my hand. So whoever had, you know, this wire installed didn't have it tight, and it just came off in my hand. I'm going to extend it anyway, so I'm going to use this Marine Flex that I have. It's copper stranded 12-3, and here it is right there, you can see. But it flexes real good, and it's marine grade, perfect for campers. This is what I'm going to use. I'm not crazy about all of this, you know, that they used originally, but I'm not going to go ahead and replace it. It's just too much work. So I'm going to use what I've got, but everything new will be that Marine Flex. So I got some wiring to do. Let's get to work. All right, guys, we made a lot of progress. So we have our shore power wire coming in to feed this panel. Out of this 20 amp breaker, it runs to the transfer switch, and then the transfer switch runs back in and feeds this panel. This is all of the 15 amp outlets in the trailer. This is the air conditioner. This one will feed the battery charger. And then, like I said, this one is to the transfer switch. So the only thing I have to run now is the wire from the inverter to the transfer switch. And then I also have to run this outlet from this box back to the outlet at the batteries. And then I have one more breaker that I need to put in here that is going to power an outside outlet that I haven't run yet. So that is a future upgrade, but not part of this part of the plan. So I've got some more work to do, but thought I'd give an update. All right, guys, here it is all completed. Everything's wired up. Super excited. Time to put on the Lynx power in covers. All right, next step is to hang it in the trailer. All right, guys, well, the rain and the running out of daylight made me quit yesterday. But the next thing is, if you see all that bundle of wire on the floor, we've got to run all of the stuff from the system to the front of the trailer. So I've got to get in there and I've got to figure out how I'm going to route the wire. I'm going to run it through the wall. Got a lot to figure out in there, so let's get in there and take a look. So ideally, we'd run all these wires through the wall when we're doing a camper build. But since this is an add-on to a camper that was already started when I bought it, I'm going to have to run it through a raceway. And so what I'm looking at is, you can see the little white raceway sticking out of the back of the Renogy there. And that's just actually just held on right there. It's not even attached. But basically what I'm thinking about doing is running all the wire I need to run through that raceway, and then I'm going to run it down right along the baseboard. And then I'm going to take it into that wall. But my problem is I've already got a raceway from the air conditioner running up the wall already. You can see it down there running up the wall. That corner down there is where I want to actually run this raceway in. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. I might actually have to hold the raceway off the wall just a little bit and take everything in at that corner. I'm not exactly sure, so I'm going to have to figure that out. All right, guys, so don't mind the dogs panting. You can see Tiller there. I got Ellie next to me too. It has been a hot day. But anyway, so I've gotten to basically a stopping point, and you can see the raceway. Basically, I had to double up, and so I've got more raceway on order that'll get here tomorrow morning. And so I will put the top negative lines and then that one 120 volt line in a top raceway and tie it in. One of the problems that I had, guys, is that my Renogy inverter ground fault trips when it's connected to the transfer switch, and I can't figure it out. And I've been reading, and basically my understanding is that there's a lot of people who've had problems with these Renogys, that when they're using them with, Romex or, wiring in to feed a breaker panel, that it trips the ground fault. So I tried lifting the grounds, so you can see the ground wire hanging there. I tried everything to try and see if I could get it to work, and I just can't get it to work. So I have a different inverter on order. I'm going to try a G&Del, I think is the name. And I'm going to pull that Renogy out and put a G&Del in its place. And if that solves my problem, well then, I don't know, that Renogy might be up for sale or something. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. I might hold on to it because the regular outlets work just fine. I could plug the outlet in and run a device no problem. If I pulled the connection to the transfer switch, it would work no problem. But as soon as I connected to the transfer switch, I got a ground fault. So I don't know, trying to figure it out. I don't think it's the transfer switch, but obviously if I put in another inverter and then it does it as well, then I've got to figure something else out. One other thing is that over here you can see I've got everything going into the wall, and I was pretty unhappy about that. Basically it looks pretty terrible. But that's what it takes to run that many wires through the wall. I drilled 2 1-inch holes to get all the wire in, and it's okay, but I'm not thrilled with it. I'm going to do what I can to hide it. That piece of Romex that runs up to the air conditioner will go back in a wire cover, and I probably should have ran it between the wall and the wires going through. I didn't think about it. Now I'm looking at it going, man, I wish I had redone that. I'm going to see if I can hide it. Basically, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get much bigger chaseway or raceway for the wires and pull all this off and replace it. But for now, I'm about 8 days away from leaving for my summer trip. It'll be fine. It's just going to work, that way. And then I'll replace it with something that looks a little better when I get a chance. But for now, hey, I need a functional trailer, and then I can work on aesthetics. Let me show you under the kitchen sink where I've got all of the 120 volt stuff. Okay, so here we are under the sink. Let me move this in a little bit and then turn it up so you can see. Basically, I've got 2 panels. This one is the main panel, and it has the electrical for the air conditioner and the AC charger for the batteries. And then this little 20 amp breaker feeds the transfer switch. And then this is a sub panel to the rest of the 15 amp circuits in the trailer. And I have one more to add, but that's to an external outlet that I don't have run yet. So I'm gonna have to run that, but I figured for right now, I'm gonna stop with this. You can see down below, basically you can see where all the 12 volt stuff comes in. I'm gonna try and secure that up against the back wall and make it look nice. And then I've got to put my water filter back in, and then my aquatainer sits right here, which is the sink drain. And then over here, let me turn this, you can see that is a 12 volt fuse panel where I'm going to add a bunch of 12-volt stuff in the front of the trailer, USB plugs and cigarette lighter sockets and things like that, Anderson connectors, all kinds of things to make this a little more easy to use with 12-volt stuff. So I don't have anything hooked into it now. I'm also going to add a power tongue jack, external lights, all kinds of things that are going to be tied into that panel. As you can see down here, the 12-volt for the solar panels and the DC to DC charge controller go into the nose of the trailer, where it comes out in a junction box under the trailer that's been siliconed, and that wire will go to an Anderson connector to plug into the tow vehicle for the DC to DC charge controller, and then up onto the roof for the solar panels. So the wire for the solar panels is going to come down off the roof. It's going to go into a wire cover that I'm going to tie into the front of the trailer behind the boxes, and then down under the trailer up through the floor and to the MPPT charge controllers. I've decided to do it this way because I'm also going to power some lights, and I wanted everything to run through the same wire hider. I didn't want to put holes in the roof. I thought it would be easier to seal and silicone holes on the floor. And so this is just the way I did it. You know, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I kind of thought a lot about the different options, and this is the way I just decided to go. Who knows, I might change it in the future, but at least for now, I think that'll hide really nicely, and because it'll tuck up behind the generator box, and it will be fine. I've got to run 2 wires. I've only got 1 wire up there right now, and nothing's actually connected up there. I was just testing. I think I need to get a little more wire. I don't think I have quite enough, but we'll see. I'm pretty close. I've got to buy some wire anyway because I still have some more wiring to do in the trailer. And other than that, I've got to connect the Anderson connector for the DC to DC charge controller. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an Anderson 175 on the trailer tongue. I'm going to make basically an extension cord. I'm going to put an Anderson 175 on the tow vehicle, and then I'm going to, connect at the trailer and the van with basically a 4-gauge extension cord, basically. So I can hook it up when I want to, but when I don't want to use it, I'm not having to deal with a long cable or connect it all the time or that kind of thing. So I will show you that when I get to that. I'm kind of running out of daylight. I'm pretty tired. This is a long day and a frustrating day trying to figure out what was going on with that Renogy. I spent a lot of hours unhooking stuff, rehooking stuff up, trying to test different things, trying to figure out if it was my install or whether it was the unit. So I think it's the unit. If it is Renogy, I'm very disappointed, and this will be the last Renogy product I ever buy. If it's not, because I try the new inverter, then I'm going to have a conversation with GoPower, who makes the transfer switch, and see if that's the issue, or try and figure it out. But I haven't had much luck searching the internet today. So with that, probably going to do a little bit more work before I run out of daylight, although the mosquitoes are starting to get pretty bad, so I don't know how long I'm going to hang out here. And then we'll hit it again tomorrow and through the weekend. And I got 8 days before this thing rolls to Minnesota, so I got to get it done. So I'm excited. There's still a lot to do. Stay tuned. All right, guys, after a long, hot, sweaty couple of days, I think we've got to a stopping point where we are going to be ready to roll out for our summer trip. Let me show you the final results. The whole system is in, it's wired, it's strapped in, nothing's moving. It is set up and ready to go. Pretty excited about that. We've gone over all of this already in the video, so I'm not going to rehash it, but suffice it to say, we're ready to put the bed on top of this system. Here's the wire raceway. I had to double it up. I'm not thrilled with it. Tiller's in the way. He apparently doesn't want you to see that corner where I had to hide some wire, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Look out, Till. Look out, buddy. So you can see that's not ideal, but it'll work for me. You know, not a big deal. When I put the desk up, I barely even see it. Here are the panels under the sink. So we've got the main breaker panel, the sub panel, and the transfer switch. I just have my water lines up out of the way as I'm going to Swiffer the floor because it's gross. But then I'm going to reinstall my Blue Technology water filter and then the aquatainer for the sink drain. And then over there, I've got the DC panel, you know, right here, ready to go for a whole bunch of upgrades. It's going to come in a future video where we're going to put some DC lighting in here. We're going to put some floodlights outside the trailer. We're going to put a power tongue jack, a whole bunch of stuff. So stay tuned for that. So here's a look inside the V cabinet where you can see the hole where all the wires go down. And I'm going to crawl under the trailer and show you where they come out. All right, guys, so under the trailer is this box, this junction box that is screwed into the plywood floor of the trailer, and the wires come out. Those are two 4-gauge cables, a positive and negative for the DC to DC charge controller to the tow vehicle, as well as the two 10-gauge leads to the solar panels. You can see the wires coming out of that junction panel, and I have them pointed backwards for water spray so that water doesn't come up in the box. The box is mounted on an angle, but the entry holes are pointed on an angle towards the rear of the trailer. I've also siliconed them once I had the wires coming out with some black silicone to seal them up. No water is going to get in. I have the wires in wire looms, and they run under the trailer until they go up to the roof for the solar, or continue to go underneath for an Anderson connector to connect the DC to DC charge controller. Here we have the Anderson connector for the DC to DC charge controller. One of these will also be on the van, and then I will have a extension cord with Anderson connectors, right, which you can see right there. I'll make an extension cord with Anderson connectors on each side that will go between the trailer and the van. But this way, when I don't want to use the DC to DC charge controller, I don't even have to have it hooked up. The solar leads come up from under the trailer and go into this wire cover, where it goes up onto the roof in some wire loom to protect the wire. And here's a look at the wires on the roof of the trailer. I have them running through this wire cover. This is adhesive wire cover, so it's just stuck to the roof of the trailer. And then I have it running down the outside of the trailer all the way back to the rear panels, or up to connect into the front array. It's all just zip tied into the ladder rack, and it's ready to go. So guys, this has been an incredible build. The last thing I want to do is show you how the system works, and then we'll close out the video. So the beautiful thing about Victron components is they're all Bluetooth. So this is a look at my iPad inside the trailer. The first thing we have is the alternator charger, the DC to DC charge controller. It's off, obviously, because I don't have it plugged into the van. I'm going to do a future video on how to run the wire in the van and how I'm going to connect it up and all that. So be sure to check that out. I'll do a review on this Victron Orion XS DC to DC charge controller. But the other three we're going to focus on are the battery shunt and the MPPT solar charge controller. So the first thing I want to do, I'll click the battery shunt. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell me where my system is at. So right now, my battery system is at 87%. It's been running all night long. Right now we are putting 8.2 amps into the battery. We're generating 109 watts. And my consumed amp hours is 76.2 amp hours. That's what we used overnight. The solar panels are currently charging the system. So we can go to trends. I'm going to zoom out here. And so what you can see here is basically a look at the last 2 days. So at night, everything drains. And then during the day, solar charges the batteries really fast because I have 1200 watts of solar. And, you know, we were only down maybe 10%, 15%, maybe 20%. And then, you know, charging, you know, really fast, and then it goes into a float mode. And then as the sun starts to set, we start pulling power out of the battery again. And as you can see, we're starting to go up right here as the sun rises in the sky this morning and it comes up over a tree. My solar panels are going to start to get a lot of power, and we're going to get plenty of sun, and we're going to charge these batteries up no problem. So let's just take a look at the front solar array, since we have two, right? And they would be, you know, roughly the same. I have a 600 watt array, and right now we're only getting about 231 watts out of the panel. It makes sense because sun is shining through a tree to hit the panel. But here you can see my input voltage from the array is around 36, 37 volts at 6.4 amps. The controller converts that to 3.45 volts and puts out 16.8 amps back to the battery. Once the battery is full, it will go from a bulk to an absorption mode, and then from there it'll go to kind of like a maintenance or storage mode. Each one of my Victron solar controllers is working together, so they're all tied together in a network, so they're getting information from the smart shunt, from the DC to DC charge controller. They're getting all kinds of information that they can use to work in tandem to power the batteries. But man, when the sun is overhead and the batteries need to be bulk charged, this thing will put almost 100 amps an hour right into the batteries. So it works really, really well. The last thing I want to mention that you don't see on the screen is you don't see my AC to DC charger. I have a 30 amp charger that when I'm plugged into shore power will put 30 amps an hour back into the batteries. The reason you don't see it on the screen is because it's not powered up. The only time it's powered up is when it's attached to shore power. I did a video on that AC to DC charger, so I will put a link to that in this video so that you can check it out. But guys, that's pretty much how it works. And on this screen, I really like it because it'll tell you exactly what's going on. So if you look at the row for the battery shunt, my battery is at 13.37 volts. It's receiving almost 13 amps. The battery capacity is 88%. The time to discharge is infinite because we're putting in energy instead of taking energy out. And we are down 76 amp hours from full. If you look at my solar arrays, you can see that the voltage is changing, but it's around 13.5 volts. The front array is putting in 232 watts. The rear array is only putting in 39 watts. The reason for that is because there's more of a tree blocking that array than the front array right now. Once the sun is overhead, those numbers will be almost identical. Both of those solar arrays are bulk charging the batteries. And it's telling me that today I've got 80 watt hours out of the front array and 60 watt hours out of the rear array. The front array is putting 16.9 amps into the system. The rear array is putting 2.5 amps into the system. Again, those numbers will change as the sun gets overhead and the sun's rays are not blocked by the tree that they're getting blocked by right now. So that's a look at the Victron app and how I am monitoring my system to know what's going on in the trailer and what my battery capacity is. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you wanted to check out the video of the solar panel install, guys, I'm gonna put a link right up here where you can check that out. I wanna thank England Fabrication and Restoration and England Motorsports, Evan England, my buddy, who made the racks for my solar panels. So check out that video if you wanna see that. It wasn't really covered in this video very well, but awesome to have the solar panels up there. And you might be wondering why there's a gap between the panels and the roof. 3 words: gravity fed shower. So if you want to see that, stay tuned because we have a lot more coming on this trailer, guys. We have to install the propane lines. We have to install more DC electrical, the floodlights on the outside, the DC lights on the inside, a power tongue jack. A whole bunch of stuff is still going to go in this trailer. We've got a lot more to do. But for now, I think it's ready to roll to Minnesota for our summer trip. We're going to be doing some camping on the St. Croix River. We're going to stop and see some friends all over the place, maybe even hit a Great Lake or two. So stay tuned for that. If you like our camping vlogs, we'd love to share those with you as well. If you have any questions about anything you saw in the video, guys, drop some in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to try and answer any questions that you might have. Some of this stuff is beyond me still, guys. I'm still really new to this, but one of the best ways to learn how to do this is to just go ahead and start and figure it out as you go. I've had a blast doing it, and I look forward to my next build, whatever that might be. I have no intention of getting rid of this. As a matter of fact, this is my plan for the next 10 years or so, is to try and live out of this thing as much as possible. But jobs and careers and family and all kinds of other stuff gets in the way of me getting outside. So, we'll sprinkle all that stuff in between. But this thing is coming along. Its off-grid capability is gonna be awesome. So if you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up on this video as it helps the algorithm. And hit that little bell icon that notifies you when we release new videos so you don't miss a thing. Guys, I'm Kevin with Camp Outside, your inside source for all things outside. We exist to help moms and dads take their kids camping, hiking, fishing, learn about nature, and develop a conservation ethic. We want to help you get you and your kids outside. Building your own camper is a great way to do that, guys. Or if you have a camper and you want to add off-grid capabilities so you can get to the places you want to go and take your kids, that's awesome too. So that's why we're doing this video series, is we're just trying to share what we love to do with you so you can go do it with your family. So guys, I want to thank you for watching. Again, if you have any questions, connect with me either here or at my other social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, or my website at campoutside.com. We got a whole lot more coming, guys, a whole lot more. So stay tuned right here. Thanks for camping out with us. I'm Kevin with Camp Outside. We'll see you outside.